Oh yeah.
While you're getting here, I want to make the same statement.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, like I said a little while earlier, we're looking at Birmingham, Alabama, 50 years later, because of the likes and actions of fine living legends like Dr. C. Herbert Oliver, which is standing to my right. And what we're going to do is that we're going to show you as a model what this gentleman did to bring about economic change in our community. And if after showing the model, if this doesn't make us have a call to action, then we need to be further enslaved. We need to go back to the masters of slave plantations and serve. We need to go back to Egypt and serve under Pharaoh. If this doesn't cause you to make sure that we liberate ourselves economically from our economic, political, and social oppressors, okay? Now, on that note, Dr. C. Herbert Oliver is going to give us some details as to what this building is and what it represents.
All right, Reverend Oliver. The store in the background is Pizzett's. That is one of the grassroots stores, a store for grassroots Negroes in Birmingham, Alabama in the 1930s and 40s and 50s. This is where the poor people came to shop. And it was always crowded, as well as the whole downtown area with blacks and whites shopping, but mainly blacks. There's about a 6 square block area here where all of the economic activity in Birmingham took place in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. It was at this store, or rather this store was targeted along with Loveman's, a block from here, Crest, Woolworth, and Newberry's, as stores that Negroes were told to stay out of because the city, Bull Connor, kept Reverend Shuttlesworth in jail and Reverend Pfeiffer in jail after they had served their term. And Reverend Gardner spoke and announced that Negroes should stay out of downtown Birmingham until they let them go. That was the beginning of the economic withdrawal from downtown Birmingham. Now that I'm back here 50 years later, I see that Pizzett's is shuttered. I don't know when it was closed, but Birmingham never recovered from it, and the empty store here is evidence of that. Now we are told by a guest that we just saw on the street that store is it's going to be turned into a condominium. It's my understanding that Loveman is also shuttered. That's in the next block, and Crest, Woolworth, and Newberry's are also closed. They've been closed perhaps for the last 30, 40, 50 years. This was because Negroes in Birmingham decided to teach their dollars some sense and not shop where they were not treated with respect. So in New York City, when blacks are being killed, when Amadou Diallo is shot down like a dog, when Sean Bell is shot like a dog, and both the local courts, the state courts, and the federal courts have done nothing to correct these. The terrorism continues against blacks as it has always been in this country from the founding of this country. We have to use economic weapons to bring changes. And that's why I'm saying that we should urge blacks to stay out of downtown Brooklyn, from Flatbush to Court Street, and from Atlantic to Tiller Street. Stay out of that area for 3 weeks to 1 month and see what will happen to downtown Brooklyn. 125th Street, where no black stores are in the heart of Harlem. Blacks stay out of those stores for a month. And then this should spread across the nation to Philadelphia and to Chicago, to Los Angeles, to Dallas, to Atlanta, all around the country, because blacks are being terrorized all over the country. And our weapon of finance, which God has been good to give us in this country, can be used to bring about changes. And we need to stop the cash registers from ringing, as was done here in Birmingham. When the cash registers stopped singing, then the merchants came to the bargaining table and changes were made. But I'm here to say that Birmingham never recovered from that economic activity to this day. It has never recovered. And the stores where I went around encountered the Negroes in there from the beginning in April 2nd, 1962, a year before Dr. King came to Birmingham. I would come down to these stores and count all the Negroes in those stores, and there were thousands when I first went. but after 3 weeks there were less than 500. And I would report these figures to the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, led by Reverend Shuttlesworth, which met every Monday night. But it was effective, and that was the beginning of an economic withdrawal, and it was this economic activity that brought about the changes in Birmingham and in the nation. But we have gone back now, we've lost ground, and we need to recoup, and we need to fight for our rights in this country, fight to have a country that we can call our own, which we don't have now.
Now, I want you to do me a favor. Before I do that, let me make a quick statement. Back in Brooklyn, Tucson, in just 3 days, brought New York City, the MTA of New York City, down to its knees in just 3 days. Now, I shudder to think what would happen if, like you said, if the blacks, the Negroes that are in major metropolis areas like Brooklyn will stay away from, like as you outlined earlier, from Court Street to Tillery to Flatbush to some other areas, Atlantic and what have you.
Tillery and Flatbush to Court.
Right. Now, if Tucson could do what he did in 3 days, imagine what we can do in 1 month.
Yes.
We can bring so much attention that we'll shut all business down like here. Now, yes. Reverend C.H. Oliver is to Dr. Martin Luther King as John the Baptist was to Jesus. He was his forerunner. Dr. C.H. Oliver set the stage for what happened for Dr. Martin Luther King. And then much as John the Baptist was the forerunner or the trailblazer was Jesus Christ. And not taking anything from my Lord and Savior, but I just want to let you know that people were sent out to blaze the trail. And Dr. C.H. Oliver was sent, I believe, by God to blaze Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s trail. Now, what I want you to do is paint me a picture. We see the after effects of the civil rights movement. But I want you to paint for me a picture about the social, economic, the social political environment that existed here. How many people were shopping? You gave a little small detail, but I want you to expand on that. I want you to just paint a picture in mind. What was this place like just prior to the civil rights movements taking place out here?
Well, all of these stores were open for Negroes to come in and shop, but they had segregated water fountains, segregated toilet facilities. No blacks were hired in the stores as clerks. Only hired blacks were janitorial services. And blacks kept the cash registers ringing in all of these stores, yet they were denied the simplest things that are human. They couldn't sit down and eat. The eating was segregated. The shopping was, the cash registers rang. You could buy everything you wanted, but you couldn't sit down and eat. You couldn't get a cup of coffee. You had to drink Negro water. And it was just totally
go to the
segregated.
bathroom?
No, I couldn't go to the bathroom. One toilet, but they had colored and white toilets. So it was totally segregated in public life. This was what Birmingham was like in 1962, in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And when the economic campaign was begun, when Reverend Shuttlesworth and Pfeiffer were held in jail over the time, then that's when the changes began. And I'm back here now. I came down from Brooklyn with these fine gentlemen, and I'm standing in front of Pizzett's, and I'm looking at a store that is shuttered and closed. That was because of the economic activity of black people who withdrew their support from downtown Birmingham because of segregation. They stopped the cash registers from ringing. And so this was a tremendous movement, and it changed the nation and it changed the world. But in the meantime, since that time, blacks have gone backwards. And I'm here to say that that should not be. We should be going forward, and we should be making progress. But right now, with blacks being assassinated and killed all over the country, and we are seemingly doing nothing about it. The federal government is silent about it. Local and city officials say that police follow the proper guidelines when they kill blacks. No, something is wrong. This should not be. And we have to use what power we have to make changes, and we do have economic power. We have to use that to direct the affairs of nations in a way that will benefit us and benefit our children. And that's what this is all about.
Good question. About how many quote-unquote Negroes, how many powerful thinking Afro-Americans, how many persons that made up the civil rights movement that caused this to happen? Was it 5? Was it 10?
Actually, it was a small group of people that met with Reverend Shuttlesworth. He was the leader of the movement here, and there were at most about 400 to 500 people that came to the mass meetings every Monday night.
Right. But
they made the change.
The core planning people like yourself, Shuttlesworth, how many other people were there?
Probably a dozen.
Dozen?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the description of the Bible says that 1 could chase 1,000 and 2 could put 10,000 to flight. My point is that it doesn't take a zillion amount of people to get stuff started.
Absolutely.
If a dozen of brothers and sisters will come together, even 5 will come together and join forces and collaborate and plan and strategize how we can do things and put steps together and have like an economic summit on getting stuff done. Now look at this building. Look at this building for a second. And I'm a real estate broker back in the state of New York, okay? But you know, I don't have the statistical data or the economic data to apply against bills like this. But my gut feeling is, looking at the structure of this building can't be no less than between $10 and $50 million, okay? The assessed value of this building, the fair market value building right now, it can be no less than somewhere between $10 and $50 million, and probably 10 times that. I'm going to error. I'd rather be error on the side of conservatism, okay? But it probably can be up to $1 million or $250 million, whatever. But the bottom line is that in the 50 years that had transpired since this building was shut down, okay, there was a total equity loss on this building, and it probably within about 95% of the market value of this place. It's probably somebody owned this building or purchased this building probably for, say, 5% of what is going for today. So that, coupled with the fact that in the 50 years that this building existed, probably the economic loss probably would amount to well into the billions. Read my lips, well into the billions. Because of a dozen people got together and said, look, we're not going to take this any longer. We're not going to take this anymore. We're fired up and we can't take it no longer. Forward always, backwards never. And we're not going to be afraid. We're not going to stand up. We're not going to accept anything other than victory. There is no other answer, no other alternative. And this is what we're trying to impress upon our people, to make sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that we free ourselves, we rid ourselves of this economic depression and hold people accountable for treating us badly. And like Dr. Oliver said, if one person dies from a police bullet one more time, we need to shut the whole doggone city down.
No, that's already done happened too much. You can't go back. You got to go forward.
Yeah, but I'm saying that. When I say shut it down, I'm talking about economically. I'm talking economically.
We should do that anyway now.
We ought to say we're not any business, any financial entity that invests one penny in protecting the police officers that shoot us. We are not going to spend our dollars there. We go up with nothing less than total bankruptcy and total shutting down that business. Again, 12 people, 12, 1, 2, punch, 12, shut down these major areas, okay? And you look at it now, take a look at it. I'm looking at the size of this building. This building is falling apart because it has not been kept up in the 50 years that it was shut down. Now, the business owners probably been pleading for folk to come and purchase. And that's why our economic dollars, our economic strength, we're not realizing that. We're not taking advantage of that. And I'm pleading to every major religious organization, every major civic organization, every major community organization, get the word out that we're going to stop spending our monies in these downtown areas and in these white-owned areas that does not have our interests at stake. Okay? We got to do this. And if we neglect to do this, if we fail to do this, then we have no other choice. We got to go back to being slaves. We got to go back to the plantation. If we can't see what we have the power to do and what's about to happen, we need to go back to the master. We need to go back to Egypt under Pharaoh and stay there. We deserve that type of activity. And I really submit to you that if we would just pull our resources and stop spending our money, we can have a similar effect, a similar result as Dr. Oliver, Dr. Fred Shuttlesworth, and Dr. What's the preacher name? Dr. Gardner did here on this to this building and these apartment stores that we're looking at today. If we do that, I guarantee you, folk will respect us, stop raping our women, stop taking away our educational budgets, stop taking away money from our senior citizens, stop manipulating us, stop doing everything to us that's negative, begin to show us respect. If people don't respect us, they're going to continue to kill us, they're going to continue to take jobs from us, they're going to continue to annihilate us, continue to do it. And if that's the type of life that we want to live, then so be it. But all we can do is lead a horse to water, but we cannot make the horse drink. Thank you.
Y'all can take this way. Y'all can take some pictures of this way. Down the courthouse. Side of Richard Arrington Jr. Boulevard, there are 12 giant swastikas engraved in the architecture of the building when the building was designed. In 1999.
Press the sign, you got it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Nice big bold letters.
They haven't taken it down. Ain't they done? They haven't taken it down to hide this thing. So we got it. God is still here. We can see them empty.
Yeah.
We can sit down and looking, man.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your facts. These are your facts.
This is the corner, and this was packed with Negroes.
Yeah. No one argues facts. Who can argue that 1 + 1 = 2? No one. It's a documented fact. Now, Reverend Oliver was just telling me that this was Woolworth. Now, I remember in my mind some pictures I seen of a demonstration of the civil rights movement around Woolworth. And look with your own 2 eyes. You know,
That's where you got arrested for going there and sit down and drink a cup of coffee.
Say that again.
People were arrested for going in Woolworth to get a cup of coffee. Black folks were in there to get a cup of coffee. They were in jail. I was in there and saw it.
Now I see a sign up that says available.
It's closed. It's not Woolworth now. That place is shuttered. Got a little jewelry store there, but available, yes, or something. But black shut all these stores down.
Yeah. And this is not a cartoon. This is not a commercial. This is true facts.
And the same thing you said about prisons. This represents 50 years. This represents billions of dollars of loss.
Yeah.
Billions.
Easy. I mean,
5 stores.
I mean, I'm just saying billions and be conservative. I probably think probably tens of billions. But again, if I want to err, I'd rather err on the side of conservatism.
And that's Crest right there, Reverend.
That's Crest, yes.
Point at it.
There is Crest. S.H. Crest and Company.
And that's gone today.
It never came back. It has closed down, been closed for years. So what it is now, it's certainly not an open store for the public to be going into, as you see from the closed windows. I don't know what's going on. What's that? A clinic? A child? Something.
Yeah, you got me. But ladies and gentlemen,
This was downtown Birmingham. Come over here, Reverend Oliver.
yeah.
This was downtown when you was a boy.
Yes.
How was it coming downtown Birmingham?
Always packed with people shopping down here. The whole area, 6 block square, was just jammed with people coming down shopping. When I was growing up here, and that was all the way up to 1963. But after 1963, these stores, when people stayed out of them for more than a year, they never came back again. In fact, downtown Birmingham never came back again. It is not now, never has ever been what it used to be.
Right.
So
50 years later.
it's a changed town. Very few people are down here shopping, as you can see. There's nobody down here shopping, and this is 10:30 in the morning. Cars are passing through, but you barely see you don't hardly see any people walking through. It is no longer a shopping center. It was then a shopping center year-round, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. It was always a bustling town, but all of that is gone, and you don't see any people walking around here now. Birmingham never has come back. They have built malls around the city, but this was a sitting duck, and it just happened that we discovered it, and we decided, well, we will not shop here. If you will not treat us like human beings, we will not shop. And that's what happened here, and these stores are closed.
Of a jury, have you reached your verdict? We have demonstrated to you what have happened as a result of withdrawing your dollar. As C.H. Oliver always says, making your dollar have some sense. Okay? Look around you. Look at the facts that we are presented to you. There's no way in the world you can argue the facts. We need to pull our dollars from each and every institution, each and every organization, entity, whatever. Pull our dollars from people that do not respect us or who does not have our best interests at mind. We can do it. You can do it. We all can do it. We can do it. You got to see the facts.
One, I would ask you to stand here and give a view of Crest, and then turn, give the view of Woolworth, then the view of Loveman's, and the view of Pizzett's 1 block away, and you will get a view from right here, the various stores that felt the impact of...
Right. One thing I want y'all to do, I want y'all to take a pilgrim journey. Come down here and see it for yourself. I don't want you to believe us. We want you to see it for yourself. Don't take our word for it. See the facts with your own 2 eyes. Record history. Make it, record it, and then display it and send it off to people. Look, with your own 2 eyes. Come out, see it for yourself. Thank you.
Loveman's, Pizzett's, Woolworth, Crest, and Newberry's was near here. I'm not quite sure, but it was very near in this area. They're all closed.
Yeah.
Downtown Alabama seems to be...
Ain't nobody down here. You please get this. Ain't nobody down here. And this for 50 years. This ain't... That's what happened in Birmingham, and white folks ain't telling you this. They never will say what happened. You're getting it. This was a theater. You had to go up them stairs and sit and look at a theater. That's the black area. It was up those stairs in the back of the building.
So that was the black theater. You had to go up them stairs.
You should. I didn't let you get that, but yeah, you had to go up the back stairs to get there. Do you see a lot of people down here shopping? No, ain't nobody down here. It's skeleton town.
I see about at most 5 people per square block on that.
Yeah. This place in the 30s and 40s and 50s was crowded every single day, morning to night. Well, this is a one-way, so I got to go down further to get it. Go around.
Go ahead.
This is the Greyhound Bus Terminal, where the Freedom Riders came in, and they were brutally beaten at this station by...
There's a young Reverend Oliver here in this exhibit, and it says, documenting human rights abuse in Alabama, the Inner Citizen Committee Incorporated, 1961 to 1965. There's a young man down there that looks like a young Reverend Oliver. And so, Reverend Oliver, talk to us about this exhibit here. I see you have many papers down here. What are these documents, and what is it about?
Well, first of all, I must say...
Oh, hold on. Yes.
Okay.
First of all, I must say that I'm very surprised to see this exhibit here of the works of the Inter-Citizens Committee. I'm very surprised and very pleased and gratified to see this display here. The Inter-Citizens Committee was a group of about a dozen black ministers and one white minister to work to document cases of alleged police brutality, to investigate them, and to bring the information to this small group of clergymen, and they would scrutinize them, and if they approved of it, then the document was notarized, and it was sent to all senators and congressmen, to local officials, to governors, to newspapers all around the world. We sent out hundreds of thousands of these documents all around the world, simply to say this is what is happening to Negroes in Birmingham, Alabama.
What was your involvement in that? What was your involvement in that?
I was the executive secretary. I did the legwork. I went out and got the documents, got the stories, and brought them to the group of ministers. So I was the executive secretary of the meeting at the time.
I just want to make sure that was clear.
Reverend Ware, J.L. Ware, was the president of the organization. Reverend Harold Long was the treasurer. And for 4 years, we documented cases of police brutality. When we started, there were hundreds of them that came to my attention. But by 1965, there were only 12 that came to my attention. So the word was apparently getting out among the policemen that when you do what you're doing in the dark, the whole world will see it and read it and see your names. Because we got the names of the policemen involved. It was a public record, and I went on every case. I went and got the public record and printed the names of the police on each document. And so their names were going around the world also with
So you
these
sent them around
allegations.
the world?
All around the world, yes, to countries around the world, to newspapers all around the world. And we literally sent hundreds of thousands of these. We got help from organizations like the Aaron Norman Fund, the Field Foundation, the Taconic Fund. They gave us funds to do this work. And it was dangerous work. I had threats on my life several times, but God is able, and I trusted God to protect me, and to this day He has. So this display shows some of the work that we were engaged in. And the Inter-Citizens Committee has wrote thousands of letters to people across the country, and we got responses from thousands of people indicating their support of our work, most of them, but some of them, of course, condemned us and felt that we were radical rabble-rousers, meaning no good for anybody. But we continued our work, and we believe that it was because of our work that many of the brutality cases tapered off and became almost non-existent. However, in time, they have come back again, and they are now we see brutality cases now on the rise. Blacks are being killed all across the nation, and there's no relief for them from either state governments or the federal government. From Amadou Diallo in New York City to Sean Bell in New York City and to the latest killing. It's just horrendous, and these things are going on across the nation. So we must find ways to stop these killings, the terror against black citizens. We must find ways to bring them to an end. We must find ways to create a country in which we can be citizens and in which we can live together with people around the world with rights, and rights that we can enjoy.
Quick question. Does this committee still exist today? If so, in what form?
No, it went out of business in mid-1965.
And did they think that, is the reason why they went out of business because they thought the work was done, or something that
The work really was done because, as I said, there were only about 6 cases that we heard about in 1965, and they were minor cases. So there was really nothing more for me to do as the secretary of the Inter-Citizens Committee. So I accepted a call to go to New York and serve a church there. It was my effort to get back into the pastoral ministry, which I felt was good for me.
Now, are the people who
They don't want to see this. There he is.
How you doing?
How you doing, sir? Dr. Woods.
God bless you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, but I can see you. Invited back. I usually sit in that chair.
All right.
An interview there.
Okay.
Dr. Woods,
All right.
how are you, sir? Alan Hand.
Reverend Allen Hand.
Bless you.
All right. And Reverend Clemson Brown. Got the camera here. Well, Dr. Woods, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here, to interview you, and to let you share with us some of the struggles you've been through and your outlook on where you think things may be going.
May I help?
Let me first of all say that Reverend Abraham Woods has been a stalwart member of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, a stalwart member of the community, a minister, a pastor, teacher, educator, honorable, service of distinction to God and to the community in many wonderful ways, and it's just wonderful that you've given to me, Reverend C. Herbert Oliver, and to Reverend Clemson Brown, and to Reverend Allen Hand, the opportunity to come to your home and to share with you our experiences and to hear from you of yours. So if you would kindly let me say that I worked with you many years with the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights.
Right.
And attended the meetings, and you were there. Your powerful voice of speaking was always wonderful, and we were so glad to hear from you. And I heard from Reverend Shuttlesworth that you were there when the mob attacked him. And
Phillips, yes.
yes. So could you tell us something about that experience? We've seen it on the TV, just small clips of it, but can you give us some recollections of what you saw, what happened there, and how it affected you, and how it affected Reverend Shuttlesworth?
Let me first say that I want to thank you, Reverend Oliver, who has worked with me and others down through the years in the struggle. And I'm certainly delighted to have you to come by to include me in the documentary that you're doing. You've always been the person who believed in keeping a record. And if it was not for you, many of the records that we now have relative to the civil rights struggle would be lost. And so it was the least I could do in spite of my condition, is to have you come by and share with you, and happy to have these ministerial comrades who have come all the way from New York to be with you, and they listened to your introduction of me, and I just want to say to them that he said all of that because he's my friend. Yes, and I want to thank him for it. It is true that I was at Phillips High School when Reverend Shuttlesworth was attacked. In fact, Fred decided to go, and he had not shared some of the details with us. And all at once he looked at me and said, "Woods, I want you to drive me up to Phillips." He sort of caught me by surprise. And before I could give my answer to respond to him, the third vice president, Reverend James Pfeiffer,
Yes.
said, "I'll drive you."
Uh-huh.
And he was very enthusiastic about that, so I didn't try to argue with him about it. I said, well, all right, Pfeiffer can drive you, and I'll come on and see what transpires at the situation. And so it was true. When I got to the corner from where they were going, I did see a mob of white persons there in front of the school. They had all kinds of sticks and bats and you name it.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I wonder if Fred's going to get out in the midst of that mob. But knowing Fred as I've known him, that should not have been a concern. The car drove right up in front of the school where they were standing, and Fred proceeded to get out of the car. And just as he got out, the attack started. Started hitting him with the weapons, the fists, and knocked him down. The ground was beating him on the ground, and that sort of thing. His wife opened the passenger side, the back, to get out and help him, and one of those mobsters hit her in the side. We found out later that he stabbed her in the side with some kind of sharp weapon. At the same time, Reverend Pfeiffer kept the motor of the car running, and while they were beating Fred, he was trying to reach with his free arm and pull Fred back in the car. And they were really giving Fred a good going over. I was really frightened and felt sure that they were going to kill him or they were going to critically injure him. He finally fell down the side of the car, the passenger seat, the front, and as he sought to get up, one of the persons in the mob sought to hit him. And as Fred staggered to his feet and this person sought to hit him, Fred slipped or fell down, and that gave Fife an opportunity to reach and get him by the hand and snatch him sort of into the car. And when he did that, then Pfeiffer stepped on the gas, started the car moving. They were still trying to beat Reverend Shuttlesworth, but Pfeiffer continued to pull him on in and accelerate, and after he accelerated to a certain speed, they had to get out of the way because
His wife
he
got
was
in
going
the
to run
car.
over him.
Ruby got into the car, did she?
Well, Ruby, after she sought to get out
Yeah.
and they struck her,
Yeah.
she didn't. She got back in the car,
Okay.
you see.
Yeah.
So Ruby was in the car, and so they got Fred back in the car, and I just knew that he was critically injured, half dead, skull busted or something. And of course, I went to tell the rest of the group what had transpired there at Phillips High School, and we went over to the hospital where Fred was taken. And of course, after some examinations there, it was told us that Fred did not even have a fracture after going through what he went through.
Praise be to God.
That
My goodness.
and of course, I remember Fred responding to that and said, the doctor said, Shuttlesworth, we're surprised you don't have a fracture after taking all that serious and critical beating.
Yeah.
And Fred often said to us, he responded, "Doctor, the Lord knew I had a hard job, so he gave me a hard head." And that was Shuttlesworth. Shuttlesworth was the most courageous civil rights leader that I have ever met, or I have ever worked with. Not to take anything from King
Yes.
and all of the others, but Shuttlesworth would not just send you into danger. He would lead you into danger. Also, Armstrong was on the other end. He came up to the school, and he was on the other end too. So he was there too. So we did see what transpired there.
Which Armstrong?
James Armstrong. That's one that we want to see before we go.
Okay. Yeah, let me make sure real quick. The reason why I want to ask these details, because we want to be able to do some research on the names, dates, and places.
Well, that's we appreciate that, because I don't know whether that's been printed anywhere. I don't know whether it's been in a book anywhere. But we're grateful to have this information from an eyewitness of that event. We have Who Speaks for Birmingham, and there's just clippings of them beating him.
Yes.
But there was enough of that to believe that at least he had some fractures. But to hear that he didn't have any fractures, yes, he did have a hard head.
Absolutely. And of course, at the time, I did not identify the man who was eventually arrested for the bombing of the church, Cherry. Cherry was one of those persons in that mob group,
My goodness.
and
Yes.
he showed up on the camera as being one who was striking Fred with brass knuckles, I believe, and so that was brought out at his trial for the bombing of 16th Street and the death of those 4 little girls.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, please. I'm interested in that as well.
You want
Yes, I want him
to talk about that, about Cherry's involvement in it? That Cherry was one
No,
of the
I want
men
him to talk about the bombing period. We want to
Oh.
talk about that.
Yeah.
The bombing
of the church.
of the
But
church.
Cherry was one of the Klansmen who was convicted of bombing the church. Is that right? And was he he was sentenced to what? Do you recall?
Well, he was sentenced to prison. I don't remember whether it was life at the time or what, but he has since died in prison.
Yes.
Now, he was not the first person to be sentenced for the bombing. A Klansman by the name of Chambliss.
Yes. Chambliss.
Yeah, Chambliss. They called him Dynamite Bob,
Yes.
I believe. He was brought to the bar of justice by the then Alabama Attorney General Baxley. Baxley was a most courageous man, and he had been featured in a national magazine as being one of the upcoming outstanding political leaders, not only in Alabama, but for the nation.
Yes.
But he brought Dynamite Bob to justice, and after that his political stock went down. All of the goodwill he had, he lost it because many people, certainly in Alabama and whites, were not happy about this bomber being brought to justice. Dynamite Bob has also since died in prison. In fact, he died before Cherry. And the other bomber was brought to justice. I went down to the church on that Sunday. I was preparing to go to service at the church I pastored on the south side, First Metropolitan, when I heard the blast. And on various occasions we would hear bomb blasts because Birmingham was really called Birmingham. And so...
I'm sorry, excuse me. I was be clear. You heard the blast with your own ears?
yes,
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
heard blast. And you wonder what was it. It certainly sounded like it might have been a bombing, but we didn't know where it was. And so I got in my car and I started moving in the direction of the bombing, of the sound.
Yes.
And as I moved along the route, as I came in contact with various persons, I would ask them, did they know what had transpired, that their bombing, did they know what had happened? And of course, I asked a number of people before finally, when I got closer, some person said to me that they heard that the 16th Street Church had been bombed. And so I proceeded to go on to the 16th Street Baptist Church. And I got there before they had put all of the blockade and to keep people from out of there. And I'm telling you, it was a most traumatic experience at that church. There was screaming and crying, and there was also cussing. Some people were really all upset. I guess we all were upset. Our righteous indignation was running over. And of course, you could smell the dynamite odor, and they were bringing things out of the church, out of that basement area. You see, the little girls, and of course they were covered and that sort of thing, and taking these young girls over to the hospital. That was a moment in my life when my righteous indignation rose up, and I said to myself, why did they kill these innocent little girls? If they wanted to kill somebody, why didn't they kill those of us who call ourselves the leaders? And at that moment, I had a negative thought that if I had the kind of weapons I needed, I would just go crazy on other folk of color.
Excuse me a second. I'm sorry to jump again, but can you just... Did you go inside the building?
Oh, no, they wouldn't let you inside the building. No, you couldn't get inside the building. And pretty soon, they were going to draw their lines, and you wouldn't even be able to get up to the church. I got there in time where I could get up to the situation, but they were going to keep everybody away from there, and that's what they started doing.
Yeah, how close did you get?
Well, I got to the corner of the church.
You was the corner, okay.
I got to the corner of the front.
And you could hear people.
Well, I could see them. I got to the corner where I could look and see where the dynamite had blown the hole in the basement.
Yeah.
And they were bringing things out of that opening. So I was right there, you see. And so I eventually left to go over to the hospital. I went back to where my car was, but as I went toward the area where my car was parked, on the corner there was a group of black young men, and they had piles of rocks there piled up at the corner. And every car that passed with white occupants in it, they were stoning the car. When I got there, there was a car stalled at the spot, and in it was a little old white man and a little old white lady. And the white man's face was bloody where they had stoned him. And I walked up to them and I was shocked, and I threw my hands up and said to brethren, don't do this. Stop. Don't do this. You're wrong. It's not right. And one of them turned around, looked at me, and he said to me, he said, after what they have done to those 4 innocent little girls at the church, you would dare tell us don't do this? I said, yes, Dr. King would want you to do that. It's wrong. We have to be somehow nonviolent. And at that time, the fellow countenance changed. He got angry, and he said, all right, then we'll do it to you. And they proceeded to draw back the stones as if they were going to stone me. And I said, well, I threw my hands up, and I said, well, all right, brethren, that's all right. That's all right. And I eased away from there and went over to the hospital. And of course, on that day, there would be a lot of blacks who would be stoning white cars and throwing rocks and things of that kind.
But they didn't shoot any white folk.
No, they did not. They did not shoot any white folk. But that same day, the police shot a young black boy in the back.
Johnny Robinson.
Johnny Robinson, who were throwing some rocks along with some others. And when they would throw the rocks, they would run. And so the policeman got in behind them and told them to halt, stop. They kept running. And so this policeman leveled his shotgun at Johnny Robinson and shot him in the back. Johnny Robinson people were members of my father's church at Shiloh Baptist in Norwood. And I delivered his eulogy when we did have the service at New Pilgrim Baptist Church. And of course, as you know, there was another black man, black boy.
Where?
Who was killed in the western part of the city by 2 white youth who had just left a Ku Klux Klan meeting. This young man was shot off his bike. He was riding with, I believe, his brother. And these whites were in a pickup truck. And one of them leveled his pistol and shot Ware. So not only on that day were there 4 innocent little girls killed, but 2 innocent black boys were also killed on that same day.
How old were the little boys?
I'm not too sure, but he was in his teens, I believe.
Yeah.
I think they were in their teens.
Now, can you talk about the circumstances that led up to the bombing? What led up to the bombings? I mean, what was happening before the bombings that, if we would do, and looking back at that period of time?
Well, 16th Street Baptist Church became our demonstration headquarters. I was the chairman of the committee for the Alabama Christian Movement to secure churches for the mass meetings to be held. And that was my responsibility. And there were many churches where the minister would not let us meet out of fear that something would happen to the church. Church might be bombed. Shuttlesworth Church had already been bombed. And so their fears were legitimate, and I didn't fool them because we didn't know what could happen. But Reverend Cross, and Reverend Cross died a few weeks ago in Georgia, was a new minister at 16th Street. And so I asked him, would it be all right for us to have mass meetings at his church? He said he didn't know the procedure, but he had no problem with it, and that if he didn't call me back, then to feel free to come on with the mass meeting. He didn't call me back, so the mass meetings got started at the 16th Street Baptist Church. We had them at churches around the city. And after King was invited to come and did come, we sometimes had to have more than one mass meeting on that night. We met at more than one church on that night. And so 16th Street was a very convenient place. And certainly, after the children were involved in the activities, and to my understanding, it was not Dr. King's idea for the children to be involved, but it was one of his lieutenants, Reverend James Bevers.
Right.
And
That's good.
it was Bevers behind Dr. King's back
Yeah.
that set in motion the involvement of the young people from the various schools.
Right.
We were not having enough adults and people to go to jail. People were working, and there were other problems, and we didn't want people to just go to jail and we bail them out. We wanted them to stay in jail, at least a week if they could stay there. We wanted to fill up the jails. And so it was our responsibility to go to the various schools to seek to encourage the students to come out and be a part of us. They knew what was going on.
Yes.
The news was everywhere. I never forget hearing that a news media person asked a little black girl, she was a real small girl, why she was in the mass meeting. And I guess he thought she didn't really know. But this little girl was tie-tongued it. And he asked her, well, what are you doing here? Why are you? And she said, beat 'em. Beat 'em. Which means she was there for freedom, you see. So the word had gotten around, and the young people were itching to be a part, and we really had no trouble in getting them out of school. They were anxious to be a part. They were jumping out of the window. They were getting over the fences where they had fences. They were running out of the doors past the teachers and the principals who sought to put up some effort to keep them from going. And they were coming from every direction in the city. I can see them now as they were marching on their way to 16th Street singing, I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. And we got these young people involved, and one of these days, after I had gone to a school to get a number involved and got back to the church, the vicinity, my wife and mother and my children were down there. And my children said to me, said, Daddy, said, we want to go to jail too. I said, well, good. I'm glad you do. I've been so busy trying to get other children to go to jail, I forgot about you all. And so my three oldest children, Yvonne, Anita, and Ruth, decided to go. My son, who was 5 years old, Abraham III, he said he wanted to go too.
My goodness.
And so
Wow, that's something.
his grandmother and his mother said, boy, you're too young. You can't go. He said, but I want to go. And they sought to frighten him. And they said to him, what would you do if one of those ferocious dogs got in behind you? He calmly put his hand in his pocket and pulled out a rock and said, I hit him in the head with this rock. They said, you still can't go. And he had a little fit, but they figured he was too young to go. So my children went also to fill up the jails. I had led one of the first contingents to integrate the lunch counter of the department store. I had gone first to Loveman, and they didn't arrest us. They just closed up the eating area and left us sitting up there in the dark.
Yeah.
And so we decided we better go next door. I think next door at that time was Newberry's, but I think they eventually changed the name. But however, we went to the lunch counter there, and they told us that if we did not leave the lunch counter, we would be arrested for trespassing. We said, we're here, we shop here on occasion, and we just like to have a cup of coffee or have a sandwich. And they said, we're not going to serve you, and if you don't leave here, we're going to call the police and have you arrested for trespasses. Well, we wanted to be arrested. And so finally the manager came and he gave us that same message. And we just sat there. And so he called the authorities in, and they brought the wagon, and they loaded us in the wagon. And I'm telling you, we were some of the happiest people you've ever seen. We were singing, woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom, and that wagon was just rocking from side to side as it was carrying us on our way to jail. And so we spent 5 or 6 days in jail. And since I was one of the leaders, along with 1 or 2 others, they took us to the city farm. I didn't know the city had a farm, but it was somewhere out near Hooper City. But they were putting the rabbit in the briar patch. I came up as a boy, working in the corn patch and in the potato patch and having hogs and things of like that kind when I was a boy in my early home. You could have those things in the city at that time, but times were going to change. But instead of carrying us out to the cabbage patch to deal with those kind of things, they took me and 2 others, and they gave us picks and shovels. And they had shotguns across their shoulders and told us to come and follow them. And of course we were very curious. We are leaving the farm where they grow the tomatoes, the collards, and all of that, and we're going into the woods. And we went deeper and deeper into the woods, and of course we were very curious. We started talking with each other, you know, why are these fellows carrying us deeper and deeper into the woods? And we said to ourselves, so we got picks and shovels. Can you imagine that they are going to make us dig our own graves and then shoot us? And we said, well, if they're going to do that, we ain't gonna dig. They're going to have to dig them themselves. And so we finally stopped, and the officer said to us, we want you all to start digging here. And I said to him, why? Why you want us to dig here? They looked at each other and sort of smiled at each other and said, we think that there is some water. We're looking for a spring. And we think that there might be some water here that we can use for the garden. And after I saw the smile, then that gave a message to me that maybe they wasn't going to shoot us after all. And we dug while they were gone. They stayed gone the whole day. And we dug. If we felt like digging, we dug a little bit. And if we didn't, we didn't. And when they came back, we dug them a little hole or something. And they didn't even look at it. They just said, come on, let's go. And took us on and loaded us on the truck and took us back to the jail. That was supposed to be a scare tactic for us. While we were in the jail, the inmates at first didn't know who we were or why we were there. And the first night or 2 was a very uncomfortable night because every time we lay down to go to sleep, lights off, we'd look and we'd see some of the inmates trying to crawl up to our bed. And so this was very alarming to us. So what's wrong with these fellows? Why are they trying to crawl up to our beds while we trying to get some sleep, you know? They want to rob us? But we heard about the other stuff they do in the jail, you see, and so we said, well, what we're going to have to do, all of us can't sleep at the same time. Some of us going to have to stay awake and watch these fellas. And that's what we did. But they finally found out who we were, and the word went around, these people who were with Martin Luther King Jr. And they started embracing us. We started singing with them. We started having meetings with them. And we had a good time in the jail. you see. Of course, the food wasn't the best and that sort of thing, but we made the best of it. And of course, being in jail was some of the most wonderful experiences of our lives, being in jail. So I had led one of the first groups to desegregate, and that's what we was doing, and that's what we used these young people for. They would come to 16th Street, and we would have the meeting, and they would be told, and of course in all the mass meeting, that if you're going to be involved in the activities one way or the other, then you have to be nonviolent. They are going to harass you. They may kick you, and some of them did that. They may slap you. They may spit on you. They did that too. And they may put a hot, burning cigarette butt down your back and said, just shake that thing until you shake that cigarette butt out, you see. And you're not to respond violently. I had been in the nonviolent workshop, not all of us, but some of us had. And of course, that was one of the cardinal requirements, that you could not have a weapon. On occasions, you would be searched to see if you had weapons, a knife, brass knuckles, Smith & Wesson, or whatever, ice pick, razor, whatever the case might be. You could not be involved in any of the demonstrations if you had weapons. And so not only the adults, but the young people went through that. And of course, after we had crowds of young people, Bull Connor sought to stop it by using the dogs. And not only using the dogs, but using the high-pressured water hoses. And this was he used to attack, as we sought to get the young people to go across Kelly Ingram Park into the downtown area. Kelly Ingram Park became the battleground area. That's where we would usually meet the policemen and the dogs and the high-pressure water hoses in that area. And we got to the point where we would set up more than one group, several groups at a time. One group would go to the park, one group would go in another direction, one group would go in another direction, where at least one of the groups would get into the downtown area in order to carry on our crusade. And of course, some of our young people and adults were bitten and injured, billy clubs in various ways, and they gassed us also. But none of that was going to suffice to turn us around. As we often said, we had a fire that the dogs couldn't bite it out. The billy clubs couldn't beat it out. The waters couldn't wash it out. The dynamite couldn't blow it out. And the jailhouse couldn't lock it out. So we were determined that nobody would turn us around. It was my responsibility to pick up people and take them to the doctor, Dr. Hamilton, who was our doctor. And we didn't know whether the dogs had been, whether they were dogs which had rabies or not. But we wanted to be sure that our people were safe from this. Dr. Hamilton died a few years ago, but Dr. Herschel Hamilton, great man, I'm telling you.
Yes.
Great doctor who continued to serve and share with the civil rights movement until his death.
Could I just add a little light on how John Cross got involved? Because when King came to town, Ware was not on board, Reverend J.L. Ware.
Right.
And I got a call from Reverend Ware saying that Dr. King had called him and asked him if he could address the Baptist ministers group that met on Monday mornings. And Ware said yes. And then Ware called me and said, be there. So I was there. And Ware made a brief speech and introduced King. King spoke about 10 minutes and asked for the support for the program there, for the demonstrations. And Ware was the first to say, we're with you, and he put it to a motion. It passed. And John Cross was the first one of the ministers there to stand up and say, we're with you, Dr. King.
Good.
And then other ministers stood up.
Good.
But I remember John Cross
Good.
saying that we are with you.
Good.
And that's what I saw with my own eyes.
Good.
And then after that, everything, the people's support was there then.
Yes.
With the ministers behind it, it really took off. They were
Absolutely.
floundering for about 2 weeks. But after King met with Ware and the Baptist ministers got behind it, that's when things really
Yes,
took
that
on a
helped a
firm
lot.
hold. That's right. It was
Absolutely.
tremendous help. Yes. Okay. Goodness, you've covered a lot of territory, and you've shared a lot of things with us.
Well, as the demonstrations went on and King was very involved and go various places to speak, I felt very honored when on occasion they asked me to go and stand in for Dr. King.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget to go into Long Island, New York,
Mm-hmm.
to speak to a big relatives group
Mm.
that sent a big contribution back
Mm-hmm.
with us. I was eventually asked to come to Atlanta to serve as the deputy director for the South to help pull the March on Washington together. And I wondered why they selected me to do that. But I eventually found out that it was because of the confidence and the relationship I had with one of the vice presidents
Mm-hmm.
of SCLC, the Reverend C.K. Steele
Oh,
from Tallahassee,
yeah.
Florida,
Mm-hmm.
who had his crusade going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been invited up and he spoke to our movement at 16th Street.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed with him, and I think that same year, the next year, I had him to come to do our Men's Day at First Metropolitan Baptist Church. He stayed with us, and we developed a very good, close relationship. I'll never forget him, all of his encouragement. He was to speak that evening at our church, and I preached that morning. And so he later said to me that, Reverend, after hearing you preach that morning, I started to leave and not come back. I know he was being kind because he was a great speaker and he was a great leader. And I just laughed and, took it in stride. But he indicated to me that he thought a lot of me. And so after wondering how was I appointed or asked to come and work out of King's office, sometime later I found that in a meeting when it came up that they needed somebody to do this, to work with Wyatt T. Walker. Walker was the deputy for the South.
Yes.
That C.K. Steele recommended me, and so I worked that summer in Dr. King's office, traveling around the South and back and forth to the North, to the Urban League's headquarters in New York, and Byatt Rustin and a fellow named Robinson was really in charge, and we'd meet at the Urban League, and Wilkins from the NAACP, and all the labor leaders, and all of the leaders of the other civil rights organizations would be there, and we would have to give them our report as to what was happening so far as the chartering of buses, the chartering of trains, the chartering of planes, and carpools and things of that kind, to give them some idea how many people were coming. And of course we knew that it was very important, because King often said to us that we must be successful in getting the people out. Because if we don't get the people out, we're going to flunk, because politicians can count. And if we don't get the people out, then they are not going to really believe that this is a major movement. And of course we were concerned about that. I'll never forget that among the chartering that I had to do with, along with others, that we chartered a train that moved up the coast of Florida. It started down in Florida, and it picked up coaches of people who were going to the march all the way through Florida, all the way to Jacksonville. We'd stop at the various stations and pick up coaches. And out of Florida, we went into Georgia, and we picked up coaches of people who were going to going to the march out of Georgia. And we moved out of Georgia into the Carolinas. And all through the Carolinas, we were picking up coaches full of people who were going to the march.
Go ahead and on. Let's go. I have to start charging. You were saying that you picked up coaches all through North Carolina,
and we picked up coaches in Virginia until we got to Union Station. And when I stepped off the train there at Union Station, those of us who were together, there were trains coming in from everywhere, loaded with marchers who were going to march. And not only that, but there were buses coming from everywhere. And I'm telling you, it looked like a number
that no man could count.
That John saw that no man could count. You talking about some happy folk? We were happy because the people that got the word and they were there.
Now, let me ask you, when you began to look at the dimensions of the movement that culminated in that march, this was not just a local organization, a demonstration. You're talking about something that was organizing all across the country. Could you speak to that?
Yes, it was a movement that drew participants and supporters from around the country and also outside of the country. King became the national spokesman, you know. The Montgomery situation lifted King out of a very small situation, you might say, to a national and worldwide situation. Of course, his home was bombed, and he exhorted the people to put up your rifles, put up your guns, for they that live by the sword will perish by the sword. We went down from time to time to give what support we could from Birmingham in that Montgomery situation. And of course, certainly it was a countrywide, because King now had become recognized around the country and around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Hold on 1 second. That's how broad and wide this movement was, and that's what you were speaking about. So I would like for you to continue to talk about the breadth and depth of the movement and the kind of organizational skills and connections that it involved to pull this off.
there were civil rights leaders around the country. And where there were no civil rights leaders, Dr. King was such an imposing speaker, and he spoke around the country. And if you sat under his speaking, there was something about his speaking that took a hold of you. In fact, you were mesmerized with something of that kind. He said what we wanted to say and didn't know how to say it.
Mm-hmm.
You see, racism was not just in the South, but there was racism around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. King's posture, Dr. King's challenge was a national challenge to the leaders of power in this country. President, the Congress, the courts, the corporations. So his message was for the country and for the world, and there were people who supported that, who advocated that, and knew that he was the right man for the right place at the right time. We were looking for a man like King. So he had the message and a leadership for the country and for the world, as we've seen how he impacted upon the world and how people throughout the world in various places came to Satan to be helped by his movement. People singing in South Africa, people in Russia behind the Iron Curtain. And everywhere you looked, you see And even now, as you go, you find schools and other kinds of things around the world named after Martin Luther King Jr. So it was not just an American movement, but it was a worldwide movement, and there were people in all parts of the country, from the coast of the Atlantic to the coast of the Pacific. There were advocates in California, certainly in New York, and all around, in the South, all around. I got to meet some of the great leaders. And I don't know how YT is doing. Is YT, I think he's in...
He's back in Virginia.
Oh, he's back in Virginia now.
Yes. Uh-huh.
All right.
Yes.
But I know he had been ill. But people like YT, Virgil Woods,
Mhm.
C.T. Vivian,
Yes.
and a whole host of other people, outstanding folk in Nashville, outstanding folk in California, wherever you looked, Florida, everywhere, all over the country, there were people who embraced the message and the challenge that Dr. King represented. And of course, he wrote his first book, Stride Toward Freedom. I believe that was the name of it. And of course, he was stabbed by this demented woman, things of that kind. So he became a national and international leader.
Yes.
I want to say thank you, Reverend Woods, for being so gracious.
And let me say this, I won't throw this in,
Okay.
about the 16th Street Baptist Church. I'm happy that I've been given credit for leading the struggle to reopen the 16th Street bombing case. With these last two persons who had not been convicted. Cherry was one, and what's his other man?
Chambliss.
Of course, Chambliss, but before Chambliss.
Oh.
After Chambliss, Bolton, I'm trying to think of his name, but he's in the federal penitentiary now. These other two died. And of course, they convicted these two. I met in the FBI office along with some other ministers. And of course, we didn't think too well of the FBI because they would be present where white people had a mob and was carrying on, and they would not arrest them. And we would ask them why, and they said they were not there to do that. They were there to be observers. And of course, we found out that they spied on us and trying to get King to commit suicide and all this kind of stuff. So we didn't have many good thoughts about the FBI. And so a few years ago, when I was invited to meet in the FBI office with the head of the FBI along with several other ministers, I started not go. I started not go because I didn't trust him. But I went against my best will, and I was determined not to eat any of the refreshments because I didn't know what they were up to. But I finally lost those kinds of negative feelings. And the first question the FBI head asked, what could the FBI, what would we like to see the FBI do? And when he said that, I jumped on him with all 4 feet and said, reopen the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. Because Hoover had put it on mothballs. And so when I jumped on him, and everything I could think of, I said to him, and the other ministers followed me, and he said he would see what he could do. And he said, what else would you like me to do? And I said, the next thing, there's not enough black FBI agents. And those that you have are having problems. You're discriminating against them. We need some FBI agents. He said, well, I'll see what I can do about that too. So we took it with a grain of salt. But we found out that he went on to the Justice Department, and he did what he needed to do, and they started the reinvestigation of the bombing case. And of course that was going to bring, this other fellow named was Blanton.
Blanton, yeah.
Blanton,
yes.
he's still in prison. And Cherry,
Cherry, yes.
all right. And of course, Blanton was convicted, and the word was that Cherry mind was of such that he could not help his lawyers. And since he couldn't help his lawyers, then they're going to have to sort of set that case aside and not convict him. And of course, the lawyer that became the lawyer, I can't think of his name. What is the lawyer that we use? You remember his name?
Is it sure? Something like that?
No, who was the white lawyer and who brought the we got a little upset with him because he was satisfied that Chambers had been convicted and Blanton had been convicted, and he said to us, 2 out of 3 is not bad, but it was bad for us because we wanted Cherry to be convicted. And so we set up a picket line down at the Justice Department in order to raise the consciousness of this situation, and said that Cherry did have enough right mind and that he was trying to get off. And so finally the judge decided to send him down to Tuscaloosa to that mental institution where they kept watch over him when he knew it and when he didn't know it. They found out that his mind was good. He remembered the name of every one of the wives he married. He remembered every car he had and all of that kind of stuff and other stuff, and they decided that he did have his right mind. And so they did set up to convict him, and I called him, what do we call this terrorist? Oh, I called him Osama bin Cherry, because he was a domestic terrorist. And I said, before we can catch Osama bin and all of those fellas, we need to do something about these domestic terrorists we have here in the country. And so he was convicted, and he was sentenced, but he's passed on to wherever those people go, and Blanton is still in the penitentiary.
30 seconds, real quick. 30
Mrs.
seconds.
Gardner is going to give me Reverend Gardner's papers.
Good.
So we're going over to get those now. So if you could give me the directions, I'd appreciate it.
To the church, were they thrown in there? Were they, somebody broke in there and hid them and put a timer on them or whatever?
Planted.
They were planted.
Planted.
It was before people got in
The bombs was planted during the night.
during the night?
Yeah.
Okay, so a timer on it.
Probably under the step,
Must have been a timer.
facing the basement.
Okay, so that's what I was confused about. Thank you. Maybe we should just glance at the titles of the book and see if there's something that's necessary. You know, just like a spot check.
Okay.
But we got the important stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Reverend Oliver,
Yeah.
introduce
You
us.
got it. This is Mrs. Gardner, the wife of Reverend Edward Gardner. And they've been married for
We were married 24 years now.
24 years.
With our
And
second wife.
the second wife, he lived to be 99.
He lived to be who?
99.
99 years old.
And he died last November.
Pastored his church for 59 years.
Pastor of his church for 59 years.
Wow.
Reverend Gardner.
I'm not even 59 years old yet.
And
Okay.
Good gracious alive.
And that was a blessing from God.
And he was the master of ceremonies at all of the mass movement
Oh,
meetings.
yes, he was.
Gardner was the man in charge. All of the mass meetings, Reverend Gardner was in charge.
He was a
Okay.
fine man.
Yes, very fine man, trustworthy,
Yes, he
honest,
was.
straightforward,
Yes, he was.
gentleman,
Yes, he was.
everything good.
It was rough, but I said he died the 4th of November last year. And I'm regular, but I was kind of sick, but look, I got worse. So I don't know.
And he promised me to give to me all of his documents and
I
records.
told her, I said,
That's why, really, that's the reason I made this trip, to get those
so,
records.
so you can find some good. I hope you can find some good, do some good with it.
This
Thank
trip
you, sir.
turned out to be like 4 or 5 blessings all together. You got the history, got pictures of the places that were shut down. You got the documents that you got wanted from her. You had a chance to meet some of your old comrades. Number 6, you had a chance to find out from the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute some things that in there that are written. Number 7, you find out that they're going to put a big mausoleum type thing for you. So 7 blessings came out of this trip alone.
So you been there.
We went to the Institute,
You
yes.
did, well, that's good. That's some of it.
Yes, we went there.
And we just got it.
Last night.
Oh, you did.
We got in last night, and all of this we
Where
did
did you
today.
live?
Less than 24 hours.
Brooklyn, New York.
I don't, you know.
What do you mean? We stayed at Days Inn.
Today, oh, yeah.
We do exactly.
All right.
And I'm glad to know some of us are still living.
Inside though.
You the boss, huh?
You know what? Just leave it. No, let's go back and sit down.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Good
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Armstrong.
Okay.
Yes, sir. All right, still here.
Okay.
Lord have blessed us and still around, huh?
Down hand, what you shake?
Glad to shake your hand. Okay.
All right. Minister Clemson Brown.
Mr. Clemson Brown, how are you today?
I'm doing well.
Good. Y'all making me feel good this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, making us feel good.
Yeah, Reverend Oliver was telling me y'all went to jail together.
Yes, sir. And
Oh,
court
my.
together too. That's on Bull Corner situation, wasn't it?
Yes,
son?
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Reverend Oliver.
Yes.
Yeah, just talk with.
Right about that right there?
No.
Stand up. Just trying to collect some knowledge here.
All right.
Yes, Reverend Oliver.
Well, this is James Armstrong, one of the stalwarts of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. Always there, always a strong supporter. You could always count on Brother Armstrong to do the work, and he was just always there. In the middle of the struggle, a man who's not afraid, never was afraid. He's a barber. His father was a barber. His shop is right across the street from where my father had a dry cleaning plant called Stewart Cleaners. And my father was there for about 20 years operating that plant. And I'm just dropping in town to see him, and I'm so glad that he's here. And we just want to address a few questions to him about the struggle in Birmingham and what was accomplished and what was not accomplished. So, and I also found out through my cousin Alta Lee, she gets into the family, and she, according to her, Mr. Armstrong is related to her. And if he's related to Alta Lee, my cousin, he's related to me also. So we're just glad he's here. And I'd like to ask you a question or two, if you don't mind.
Feel free.
What was, if you could just give us just a little bird's eye view of your impression of what happened with the civil rights movement in the 60s and how it affected your family. We know that your 2 sons integrated one of the schools here, and they also they've finished college and finished school, have the families of their own. Could you just share with us some of your highlights, whatever you'd like to, about the struggle here and how things stand now?
Okay.
Include name, dates, and places.
Back in '56, as you remember, in Reverend Shuttlesworth's attempt to integrate Phillip High School.
Right.
he got beaten real bad. I was down there, and me and Mary Woods, and 3, 4, 5, 6 of us, we were supposed to meet him at the east end door of Phillip, but he got beaten around the south side door of Phillip. So we didn't find, we were running late and went around there and found the conclusions going on around there. The police stood back and let those white folks that live in that project beat him. So we went down and rescued him and took him to the hospital, he and his wife and his daughter.
Why was y'all meeting at the school?
Well, he was supposed to integrate the school, meet him there, be his company, though, when that was the first day we attempt to integrate at Phillip High School. That's up there by the courthouse. But he stayed in the hospital a few weeks and got out, and first thing he called for families. Let's integrate everything in Birmingham that's segregated. And we want families to come step forward for the school. So me and 7 other families went forward, signed up to integrate Birmingham School. I had just moved in College Hill in '56. And school was a block and a half from my house. So I signed up to integrate Greyhound. 8 of us, families. 7 later on dropped out of the case because they all got fired from their jobs. And so I had to carry on by myself because this was my job. My folks fed me. So I'm still here. So I had it pretty rough, but I was determined, and my kids, they was trained along with me. How they went to jail. Well, they didn't put my boys in jail because they were too young. Put them in juvenile court. My daughter went to jail. We're sitting in lunch counties. My wife in jail, my daughter in jail, my boys in juvenile court, and I was in jail. I went to jail in this city 6 times.
Wow.
Yeah. 3 times in lunch counties. And I remember certain 2 occasions that me and my 5 or 6 other boys, some of them from Tennessee, came down. And we sitting at the lunch counter in Woodworth. And a cracker boy came in and took a cigarette out of his mouth and stick it to your neck. All that happened to us. But we didn't fight. That's what they were trying to make us fight. Because I knew if we had fought, we got more trouble, and fighting was sitting in. So went to another Cresses of Woodworth, not Cresses, Newberry's. And they take whatever they drink it out of the cup and pour the ice down your back. We had it there, but we still didn't fight because Dr. King and his group have taught us well about nonviolence. We took it. We stayed there till the police come and arrest. And that's what we wanted to do, get arrested. We got arrested, went to jail. When we went to court, when my lawyer got through with the man who owned Cresses, Woodworth or Newberry, he got a license to serve the public. That's how that get knocked out, just that easy. So I tell the folks all the time now, comes into the Institute, that ain't but one thing you got to worry about in a lunch counter in Birmingham now, that's the greenback. That's over it. So then I joined the crowd to ride the buses, sit up front. Bus passed us by this store, just went by, go all the way to Inslee. I got put in jail for that. And now 80% of the drivers out there is black folks. Me and Lincoln Hendricks joined the Freedom Riders, came here, and went inside. We integrated the Greyhound Bus Station, and it was segregated, 2 different waiting rooms, one for black, one for white. So we went in the white waiting room. We got arrested. We knew we were going to get arrested, so we went in there. So you don't have but 1 waiting room in that Greyhound Bus Station today. Several other things we went in and got involved in, but. They always name me Jailhouse Bud, but they say, every time we come here to get a haircut, you in jail. I said, well, join us. Yeah, well, I'm in jail for all of us. I say, I went from Normandy Beach to Czechoslovakia, World War II. Well, Mr. Armstrong, why would you come back to Birmingham? I said, I was promised a mule and 40 acres before I left here. So I come back to collect. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, collecting my mule and 40 acres. Yes, sir. I said, then when I die, I want to die in Birmingham because I want to go to heaven. He said, how you know you're going to heaven if you die in Birmingham? I said, I'm caught all the hell right here.
Mr. Armstrong,
That's that.
what motivated you to do the things you did? Why? What motivated?
Well, I couldn't give you really an answer. So many answers I could give you, but when you get denied and what I went through from Number Beach, stayed there, sleet, rain, snow for 8 weeks, without changing clothes, without eating out the rain, or eating out the snow, or eating out the sleet, you know, and you had to go over there, and I stayed over there 2.5 years, then come back home. Then again, you got to sit in the back of the bus. When you start one thing, you go to another one. But when Fred one kind of man, you Reverend know how he is, he called, let's desegregate everything that's segregated in Birmingham. He's my man. I love Dr. King, but he was the leader, the national leader of SCLC. I cut his hair, sit in that chair there 2 or 3 times. He come to Birmingham, need a haircut, he come to my shop and get it. Yeah, Martin Luther King. Yes, sir. So there's so many things I could go over and reminisce with you.
That's on that question.
Go right ahead.
When Martin Luther King was sitting in the seat, what type of discussion of civil rights did y'all have, and again, including name-based places?
He and I never had any discussion because there are always some customers in here who say something, you know.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes I had to turn him around when people passed that door and discovered that he asked who was in there. I had to turn him around and finish cutting his hair because everybody was getting up around the window looking in here. Same way now, if I cut white folk have, folks stop looking. I got about 5 or 6 white customers. I don't have no, I got a license to serve the public. I'd rather get in jail for cutting it than get in jail for not cutting it.
Mr. Armstrong.
Yes, sir.
I want you to look at and discuss some of the things that we gain. What do we gain, and what do we lose, and where do we have to go?
We have a long ways yet to go. I don't tell nobody that it's true because our young folks now bothers me. That's why that door locked. They bothers me. They around here driving $250 car with $500 worth of paint on it and $5,000 worth of rims on it. They ain't got no job. Something happening somewhere, huh?
That's right.
Huh? They had to be stealing, robbing, or selling drugs. And you got those kind of folks now. We don't have, I say all the time in here, we don't have a teenage problem. You got a parents problem. Folks not raising their children no more. Yeah, that's what got to happen to us. We don't forgot about our history. I got that picture up there, Reverend. I bought it in Chattanooga. See that back picture?
Yeah.
7 black men. There was Congress back in 1872. Huh?
Yeah.
We don't know that history. All of us have been slave all our life. Not our old parents, you know. So there had to be something back in those days. So we headed back somewhere else now. Because it bothers me. They come in here, and I ain't gonna let nobody in here use no bathroom, and I don't know them. Even if one of y'all sitting in here. Because they go and they come out with a 38 and get all of us. These folk got some young folk got some crazy minds. And I'm afraid of them. I'm glad I raised my children like I did. They had to do. I said, you got to get something in your head, because your name is on the wall. I said, now I'm telling you now, don't live in fear of nobody, because when you broke up the segregation in Greyhound School, that's the white man's system you broke up. And you ain't got no black folks now have no jobs in this city. Everything you're not going to foreigners, either the Chinese, the Japanese, or whatever. That's the Indian run the service station. I've been run by black all of my life. I've been here 53 years. I opened this shop. I was the first one in this building. Been right here ever since. Yeah, but you can't get nobody to work. They don't want to work.
So what I wanted him to just explain the gains and the losses. I want you to deal with that a little more.
We have a little game. Now I don't say no whole lot. But we got a chance to fight, if no more. If we fight for something I don't like, we can fight for about it. And offer ourselves with the sacrifice. Because these things that we have gained, it means a whole lot to us today. And the white man give you a little more respect. Little more respect. And you say, oh. But it's because we aren't, the East ain't together. I tell them all the time, there are 4 kinds of us. There are colored folks, there are Negroes, and there are niggers, and there are very few of us are black. Because we won't stick together. So that's our problem, togetherness. And we got a long ways to go with that yet. And it bothers me, and I still in the struggle. We don't do meat like we used to back in those days. We think we only got to the promised land, but that isn't so. And because when I move up there where I live, and then filed to integrate the schools, some of my black folk that in my block told me I was going to get killed. And all of them that told me that, they are dead. My brother came in from Detroit. Brother, we came out and said, won't you get out that mess, Fallen King, and shut up. You don't get yourself killed, you and your children. He died in Detroit drinking liquor. My sister came in from Chicago, and he younger than I am, she younger than he is. Brother, we love you. We want you to get out of that mess, Fallen Shuttleworth King. You don't get yourself killed. She got killed in Chicago in a car wreck. I'm still here. Yeah. So the Lord will bless me, and I know that. I realize that. Because I know when He took me from Normandy Beach to Czechoslovakia and brought me back here, there had to be a God. When I look at the boys coming here now in a sack, in the war, from the war, in the sack.
Wow.
So the Lord had to be good to me, and I saw some things that I didn't think I'd get back home, but I didn't give up. So what could I do about it? I couldn't walk the street, the sea back here. I couldn't leave and catch a ship, come on back home. I had to stay with my crowd. So I'm here.
All right.
Children ask me sometimes, I'm where's your birthday? I said, which one? They look at you, look at each other. Son, you can't have but one. I said, you can have more than one. And why? I said, the first one my mama told me. Well, she brought me here. And the second one I got converted, I told her. And they took me around the world and brought me back. She's gone on to glory. I'm still here, my mama. Yeah. How old are you? That's not too long ago. I said, I'm 84 now. You 84 years old? I said, sure. That's what my mama told me, and she never told me but one lie in her life. Everybody don't jump on that day. What kind of lie did your mama tell you? She just told me I was a Santa Claus. Get rid of that lie. They just, you know, sometimes talking with children, they ask some crazy questions. They're a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it, though. So they need to know.
Yes.
They need to know something, man. That's why I got these pictures here. Yeah. Man, ask me about it. I know all of them.
I see this is you here.
Mandela.
Oh, no, that's Reverend Shuttlesworth.
I met Wilder. I was invited to his operation. My daughter worked for him when he was running for governor. And I went to Harold Washington's funeral. Stayed up there a whole day. And you know Martin and Jesse.
Yeah.
Well, we still around. Martin's gone, but the spirit's still here.
Restrooms, white and colored.
White and colored. I bought that at the flea market.
White on.
I bought all those pictures at the flea market. Yeah. I wanted to see some of our history we had to go through with, how we lived. The main thing, they've been pretty all our lives.
Now, you need to get a picture of his sons.
At the integrated school.
His father and his two children and Reverend Shutters were going to the school to integrate it.
That's the day the court ordered us to go to school, and that's what we were headed to.
Yeah.
What date was that?
When we got on September the 9th, 63, we got down to the school, and the governor had the door blocked with 30 state troopers. See, this is my top lawyer here, Constant Motley.
Yeah.
And Attorney Oscar Adam and Attorney Jackson from Jacksonville, Florida, was my lawyer with her. They said sometimes she stayed at the house that morning. My wife fixed her breakfast.
And that's your son honored
That's
by
my son that being greeted by Clinton
All right.
when he was president for being first integrated school.
Okay.
Where is that at? Point to that.
This here.
Yeah.
That's Clinton is honoring
And
his
my
son,
first
Dwight
son, the one
Armstrong.
with the black pants on.
Yeah.
He just come out of he went to Tufts University in Boston, and the other boy went to Boston College in Boston. And Dwight with the black pants on, his oldest son just came out of Morehouse about 3 months ago. Yeah. And the other boy's son is named Tuskegee. This is my daughter here, with the little brown picture.
Okay.
She went to University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and Went from there to Massey College in Atlanta. She majored in fashion designing.
Okay.
And she did her last quarters in London, England.
Mm.
This is my first job when I got at the Army. Had to be there. And, I'm the only one living. Everybody say I'm going to get killed. I'm the only one living. All the other barbers gone.
I think I know the answer to the question, but
Go right ahead.
is this 60th
60th Street Church, all three of those pictures.
That's right. That's what I'm sure about that.
Yeah. This is when I ran for the House of Representatives.
Okay.
Yeah, I beaten by a fellow named Dick Bree, a white fellow, beat 700 votes, and there are 15,000 of my folks didn't go to the poll. Yeah. This is one of the marches here, and
I'm surprised you skipped over this one.
yeah, this was down in Huntsville.
Yeah. It says Armstrong named one of Alabama's 10 most beautiful people.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, sir. The right to vote.
Now, say that again. You were in Bloody Sunday?
Yes, sir. That's in.
What was Bloody Sunday?
If we march from Selma to Montgomery to get the right to vote.
Uh-huh.
So why was it called bloody?
Well, the God folk got beaten up pretty bad.
Okay, I just make sure that we the
Mhm,
facts.
yeah, right. A lot of people got beaten up real bad. So that was Bloody Sunday.
Where did
I
y'all
walked
leave
from there four times from Selma to Montgomery. Pardon?
No, I wanted to know where did y'all leave from?
Selma, there from Brown Chapel Church and crossed the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
That's where a lot of folk got beaten up on the bridge. Women's got knocked down with horses, sprayed them with tear gas, old women's too, all of that. I spent 7 nights down there in Selma on the ground because we had to give the women and children a church. It was a pitiful situation down there, but we made it. Yes, sir.
You talked about these two pictures right here.
That's
First march
around the
in the
motel around there where,
These two.
yeah, around there by the Gaston Motel. We had a lot of people around there, gather around there. We always gather out there in that Kelly Ingram.
40 lives for freedom. These are the 40 persons Mr. Armstrong was saying died for freedom from the years 1954 to 1968. Should I call the names? Or you can get
No, I don't have that much tape.
You got enough time.
But sure, we like be able to take care of them. That's a question we need to ask Black America. Those living legends from the Civil Rights Movement, what can we do to their life sustaining?
Say that again. What's the answer?
Number one, come together.
Come together and stay together.
That's right. Your problem is my problem. Your survival is my survival. Teach your dollars some sense.
I like that phrase. It's been echoed throughout.
Yeah.